You know, in the history of ideas, every now and then you get this incredible story of a brilliant student who just takes their teacher's work and runs with it in a direction nobody saw coming. Well, this is one of those stories. It's about a philosopher named Edmund Husserl who is desperately trying to find a solid, rock-solid foundation for truth, and a star student, Martin Heidegger, who took the very tools his teacher gave him and turned them around to ask an even deeper, way more personal question. So, let's get into it.
But let me start by asking you something. Just take a second and really think about this. Do you experience yourself as a detached mind, kind of like a brain in a jar, just observing the world go by? Or is who you are, is your very existence, completely wrapped up in the fact that you're right here, living in the middle of it all? This question, right here, is the key to the whole philosophical shift we're about to unpack.
All right, to really get why this matters, we got to rewind to the early 20th century. Because back then, philosophy was having a total meltdown, a full-on crisis. It felt like the very ground it stood on was just crumbling away. For centuries, the big goal had been to find certainty, right? Some kind of unshakable foundation for knowledge. But now, that entire project was starting to look like a lost cause.
You had thinkers like Friedrich Nietzsche coming along and saying, hey, what you call truth, that's not some objective thing out there. He argued it's really just a reflection of our psychology, our specific point in history, or even just our basic primal drive for power. And this just blew the doors wide open for relativism. I mean, if every truth is just a personal perspective, then is anything really true at all?
So into this mess steps our first guy, Edmund Husserl. He looks at all this, it's all relative talk, and says, absolutely not. We can do better. He had this incredibly bold ambition to build a new, unshakable foundation, not just for philosophy, but for all science. And his method? To go back to the source of it all, our own conscious experience. His rallying cry was, to the things themselves.
So how on earth do you do that? Well, Husserl came up with this pretty radical move he called bracketing. Now, this isn't about doubting that the world exists. He's not saying maybe this is all a dream. It's more like putting all of our assumptions about the world, all our scientific theories, our cultural beliefs, everything, and putting them aside in a mental box. You just suspend judgment on all of it so you can finally see the pure experience of consciousness itself without all that extra baggage.
And his project was, unbelievably ambitious. Okay, so here's the game plan. Step 1, he starts where Descartes did, with I think. But he says Descartes just didn't go far enough. So, step 2, he applies that radical bracketing we just talked about, setting aside everything to get to step 3, describing the universal, essential structures of what consciousness is actually like for any person at any time. And this whole process leads him to his big breakthrough, a concept he called intentionality. It's a fancy word for a really core idea. Consciousness is never just sitting there, empty and passive. It's always active. It's always directed towards something. You don't just hope, you hope for something. You don't just remember, you remember a person or an event. Your mind is always reaching out.
This is the key. Consciousness is always of something. It's fundamentally directional. It's not like a bucket that just passively gets ideas poured into it, like some earlier philosophers thought. No, it's more like a flashlight beam, always pointing at something, illuminating it, and giving it meaning.
So you see, Husserl wasn't just interested in the I who is thinking, and he wasn't just interested in the object being thought about. He was fascinated by the connection itself, the knowing part of I know something. As one scholar, Dr. Arthur Holmes, brilliantly put it, Husserl wanted to study the hyphen. That little dash is where all the action is.
And this is where our story takes its dramatic turn. Because Husserl's most gifted student, Martin Heidegger, he takes this powerful tool for studying the hyphen and he uses it to ask a completely different, and you could argue, a much, much bigger question.
And the shift is it's huge. Look at this. Husserl is all about knowledge, right? Epistemology. His big question is, how can we know things for sure? His focus is on the I that knows. But Heidegger, he pivots completely to existence, to ontology. He asks, what does it even mean to be? His focus isn't on some detached, observing mind, but on the real, concrete you or me that exists right here, right now, in the world.
Heidegger's big critique of his own teacher was actually pretty profound. He basically said, look, this method is genius, but your goal, it's impossible. You can't actually bracket away the whole world to get to some pure consciousness. And why not? Because you never, ever find consciousness all by itself. As he put it, you never catch the intentional state bare. We are always, from the get-go, already in and dealing with the world.
So Heidegger launches a whole new project. He says, okay, let's take Husserl's incredible tool, this phenomenology, this careful, close description of experience, but let's not use it to try and ground science. Let's use it to describe the fundamental structures of what it's like to be human, what it's like to exist.
And to do this, he comes up with his most famous and maybe strangest sounding term, Dasein. It's German, and it literally just means being there. And that little word, there, that's everything. For Heidegger, our existence isn't something that happens inside our skulls. Our very being is our being in the world. You can't separate the two, not even for a second.
So what are the basic features of being this Dasein? Heidegger calls them the Existentialia. For instance, we are always being with other people. We're fundamentally social. We are always aware, even if it's in the back of our minds, of our own limited time here, what he calls being unto death. And we all experience this weird thing he calls facticity, that feeling of being thrown into a life, a family, a time in history that we just didn't choose.
Okay, so this radical shift from thinking of ourselves as a mind knowing a world to a being living in a world, it changes everything. And I mean everything, including how we think about one of the oldest ideas in all of philosophy, the idea of truth itself.
Heidegger does something really cool here. He goes all the way back to the ancient Greek word for truth, aletheia, and he points out that it doesn't mean correctness. It literally means unconcealment or uncovering. I want you to picture someone rolling a giant stone away from a cave to see what's inside. For Heidegger, that's truth. It's not a statement that matches a fact. Truth is what reveals itself, what comes out of hiding and shows itself to us.
And this isn't nearly as abstract as it sounds. We all know this feeling. Think about a moment of truth in your own life. Maybe a crisis, a huge decision, a time you were really put to the test. In that moment, something was revealed, right? The truth of who you really were, or what the situation really was, it just showed itself. That's aletheia. It's truth as an event, a revelation.
So that's where this journey leaves us. Heidegger took us from a philosopher's search for abstract certainty and dropped us right in front of our own lives. And if he's right, if truth isn't just a list of correct facts, but it's what gets uncovered and revealed in the way we actually live, then the final question really is for you. What truth is your existence revealing? What is showing itself right now in the way you are being there in the world?